My name is Andy, and I film the videos at the Imperfects. I'm the son of English immigrants, and I am grateful to call Australia home. We at the Imperfects acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and extend our respects to their elders past and present. I am inspired by the strength and endurance of the world's oldest living culture, and we draw on and pay homage to their traditions of story when we share stories on our podcast.
Hello, old chap. I'm still British, and welcome to the Academy of Imperfection, a conversational lecture series where experts in their field share their wisdom on the subject of imperfection. Today, author and all-round Wonder Woman Kemi Nekvapil returns to tell us what success should look like.
No, the external validation is great and it's really nice, and in certain industries you have certain awards, and 100% it's wonderful to get those awards, but only if when you go back to your hotel room or your home that night, you don't feel empty inside. You know, that it adds, that it's like the gravy or the cherry on top, but it's not the thing that you were waiting for, because most people, when they were waiting for the award or for the win, it never feels like they thought it was going to feel.
So join Hugh, Ryan and Josh on their custom-made three-man penny farthing and gracefully enter this week's gosh darn smashing episode of the Academy of Imperfection.
Welcome to the Academy of Imperfection, a return guest. It's pretty cool we're at the point now where we're having return guests.
It is. I totally agree, especially this one.
Well, especially this one, Kemi Nekvapil in the Academy, lecturing us all on how to be better people.
Well, that's funny you say that. I did, after the first episode we had with Kemi, I remember, as you left, I remember feeling like I'm a better person because I just heard Kemi talk. That's how I felt.
Well, Kemi, I've been very lucky enough to catch up with you a few times, coffee, one-on-one.
Yes.
And I
Really?
feel, yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, I told you, didn't I?
I don't think.
Or maybe not.
Oh,
didn't
you
know that.
lucky sod.
It's all out in the open now.
Watch your mouth, Josh. Sod.
I'm happy to have coffee with others.
Great.
Yeah. But after
No.
those coffees, I feel very much, I feel enlightened. I feel good about myself. That last one, I walked away with very proud step.
Oh, that's great to
That was
hear.
nice.
I think I walked away with a proud step too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You lucky sods.
How are you, Kemi?
I am good today. Yes, today is a good day. I, as I mentioned to you, I feel that May is going to be a magical month just because I've decided.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I have no control of any of the things that are going to come into my life during May, but I do have a bit of a say of how I choose to look at things.
Love that.
And I am always a seeker of magic and delight and joy. So I'm going to be seeking out magic and delight and joy.
Wow.
Do you find when you do that, it often happens?
Always.
Really?
Yeah. In the same way that if I'm looking for where is the world at its worst, I know that I will find that too.
Oh, right.
And I just choose not to, because I know that's happening, and I choose that that's not where I want to spend my time or energy.
It's kind of like a grand scale version of when you go like, I've got itchy armpits after having that Vegemite. And then you Google, does Vegemite give you itchy armpits? And it's like, yeah, there's a Reddit forum on it. Yeah, there's 5 people. Oh, I knew it. And then you believe that that's the truth.
Exactly like
Is that what you mean?
We will, there's
Sort
a
of,
beautiful
not really.
quote. There's a beautiful quote.
Has my mind just broken?
I was a little surprised at the analogy. But I
Yeah,
get
it
it.
was a weird one, wasn't it?
It kind of worked though.
Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, I feel that I sort of don't want to let that one go. How are your armpits?
They're okay.
They're okay.
They're good now.
And Vegemite and your armpits work?
Yeah, I balanced it out with some Promite and they're fine now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can always throw in some Marmite from
Oh,
coming
yeah,
from the
Marmite.
English.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
If you want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for
there
not
is a-
letting that go.
There is a beautiful quote that I love, which is, you get what you focus on, so focus on what you want.
Oh, yeah, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It is. It
Love
really
it.
is.
I think I don't do enough of like going back and thinking if the things that I wanted actually happened. Because I feel like you would do that.
move on
Kemi.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, just move on and just
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that And especially certain types. You know, I work with different people in different industries, and I find that happens a lot with entrepreneurs, actually, and creatives, that there is this momentum to create all the time, and you finish a project or you finish an idea and then you go on to the next and the next. And I find that my work as a coach is very much pulling my clients back and say, hey, you've just achieved that thing that we've been working on together. How have you celebrated?
Oh, that's good.
How did it feel? Did it look how you thought it was going to look? Do you feel how you thought you were going to feel? Because I think that gives us the information we need to then create whatever the next thing is.
Such a good point. I'm shocking at that. I find that whenever I've achieved anything, I reckon I'd give myself maybe a minute to be of going like, that was good, before the bars suddenly moved again. And you're like, all right, well, what's the next thing that's going to be? And not really just going, well, that was not sitting in it and going, well, because I'm also don't want to get like too arrogant or too like, geez, you're good.
Yeah.
But I think it's too strong, that urge. So I find the negative, or not so much look for the negative, but I just don't want to get too carried away with celebrating success.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. I think even the fact that you take a minute, to be honest, is more than many people.
Yeah, right.
But we do diminish our successes, and when we keep moving the bar, it's hard to ever feel that we've succeeded at anything if the bar keeps changing all the time. We have to be able to say, this is what success looks like, and when I reach there, I'm able to honour myself enough to give myself the time to acknowledge and celebrate what I've achieved, you know, and to sit in that success.
This is, I don't know if you meant this, but it's an incredible organic segue into the topic we're talking about, which is success.
Can I interrupt awkwardly though?
No, I was gonna, because you're sitting there with the bio and thinking, when do I get to read this thing?
Yeah. No, I feel like most people probably know Kemi, especially from the last episode we did. But just in case, I'm going to read a very short paragraph which will summarise, I think, Kemi, if that's okay. Kemi is one of Australia's leading credentialed coaches for female executives and entrepreneurs. Kemi is also a professional speaker and facilitator who's worked in the wellness industry for more than 25 years and a holistic leadership for 10 years. Kemi, you've also facilitated with Brené Brown's Dare to Lead program and invited to Richard Branson's leadership. It's like a leadership conference thing that you're invited to sit on a panel there as well. So, yeah, she's a big deal, I think is probably how I'd summarise it.
Well, and if you want to find out more about Kemi and her incredible story growing up, you can listen to the first episode that Kemi actually did with us, and it's just such a good episode. So please, I implore you to go back and listen to that. But officially, welcome, Kemi. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So
put my phone away now.
So yeah, we just sort of started just randomly talking about success in a weird way, but that is what you wanted to talk about today.
Yes, I do. I wanted to talk about success because, as I just shared, so many people have an idea of what success is, and generally it's external. And there is a form of success that is really celebrated in our society and in our culture, in the Western culture, which is one of materialism and anything that's an external thing that's been given to us. And I think some people are starting to become aware, but maybe not a lot of people, that actually whatever somebody has as the external advantages that they're being given, or the awards, or the life they're living, or the car they have, or the house they have, that has nothing to do with how they feel about themselves as a successful human being internally. And especially when we look at, maybe celebrities or people that have very high profiles, and we have an assumption, well, they have this thing, or they have this TV show, or they're doing this, or they've won that. And we just assume, well, every area of their life must be going really well. And actually what we need to do is to be able to go, in this area of their life, things seem to be going well. We don't know unless we actually know them. But that doesn't actually indicate that any other area of their life is going well. And in fact, sometimes, unless we're really mindful of who we are and our capacities and our boundaries, there's a very good chance that the further we get up the ladder of success, whatever that means for us as individuals, that there are things falling away that we're not succeeding at. And we hear that story all the time.
That's good. That's a good one. This topic is I've been really excited about today, because the idea of what is success and how do we measure success and how do we know if we've been successful, something I've been thinking about in relation to me. I've been thinking about so much in the last 5 years, because it's exactly what you just said before, which is that most of us just assume that success is an external thing that we can't control whether we can control part of the equation of whether we're successful or not, but almost half of it, if not more, is up to the people, up to other people, whether they can say like, yes, well done. The book's good enough that we're going to buy your book. So now it's successful because lots of people bought it, or lots of people came to see the movie, or you got a standing ovation, or whatever it is. Like then you go like, oh, well, it was a success because other people responded to it in a really good way.
Do you think social media has completely warped or distorted, the amount of time we spend on social media as well has completely distorted our view of success?
I think social media has distorted most people's views on nearly everything.
Yeah.
You know, not just success. And even though we all know intellectually that it's a highlight reel, I think it still kind of goes into some people's psyches that this is someone's real life, and what they're posting is exactly how they live every single day. And then you do have the people that are kind of doing the complete opposite of that and are showing kind of the more vulnerable sides of life. But I also feel that there's something that you're still then getting pulled into somebody else's life and not focusing so much on yours.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
You know?
Yeah.
Either way, you're still a voyeur of somebody else's experience of life, which we've never had before, really, in the way that we do now. That you can wake up and before you've even checked in with how am I going in my life or how do I feel today, you've already checked into how does somebody else feel.
That is an incredible
It's the first thing my mind went to then was what we share on social media for the Imperfects. And we kind of share this, it's either a vulnerable moment or something really funny that's happened. And I'm just wondering what that does to people. I wonder if we should just start sharing like Josh just walking into the studio and putting his bag down.
Really mundane stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, but with a really nice like music track, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, check out Josh,
we can
he's so me. I do that at my work.
I put my bag down too. Yeah.
That's how I put my bag down with my right hand too. I can relate to those guys.
And then you can tag all the people in your life that put the bag down.
Yeah. That is good content, actually.
But I think that when our focus is over with other people, just in terms of social media, but not even with social media, even that idea that the grass is greener. And, you know, I love a cliche. I believe cliches exist because they're real. And one of them is, you know, this idea of the grass is greener on the other side, but actually the reality is the grass is greener where you water it. And
we've got a T-shirt gun.
We do.
We've got a printer that prints on T-shirts. That's okay.
And that's I'm not going to take credit for that one, but I remember when I first heard that, I had the same reaction because it actually brings it back to self, and it brings it back to what does success look like to me, and in what areas of my life do I want to be successful in, and what is that in a tangible, measured way, so that if or when I reach that, I am clear that I have succeeded in that area, and success begets success. You know, so then you then have an energy about yourself and a confidence about yourself of, wow, I achieved that thing, so then maybe I can do this next thing. And sometimes we fail along the way. And to be honest, as a coach, a lot of the people I work with don't come to me with specific goals. I'm not that coach. I'm not I have this goal to do this thing. Mainly the people I work with, and I work with a few good men as well, who just want to be coached by me the way that I coach, that kind of brings in the whole human as opposed to just a business coach or just a performance coach. And, you know, one of the things that I work with my clients on is it's great to have the goal. Like, it is great, but it's not about the goal ultimately. It is about who you become on the way. That is so much more exciting to work out, and that's where the success can be. I was working with a client the other day and she was very, very excited. I said, what do you want to share with me since we last spoke? And she goes, I went out the other day with some friends for dinner, and there's someone at that table that I've always compared myself to. And so I've always felt like I've had to sort of impress them, that they would only pay me any attention if I sort of told them the most impressive things about me. And I felt myself wanting to do that because they had shared an impressive thing. And I didn't say anything. And I just said, it's been a really tough week for me this week. Like, I'm really happy for you, but it's actually been a really tough week. I'm struggling at work. And I said to her, why are you sharing that with me as a success? I mean, I knew, but it's important that she said it. And she said, because I realised that I could be in a space with them as my own person, with my own experience that had nothing to do with a reaction to who they were being.
Yeah.
You know, that's the internal success, that I can sit at a table and be who I am, and it has nothing to do with who else is around the table.
So good.
I love that.
It reminds me, and apologies if I've said this on the podcast already. I keep
The Vegemite thing.
Armpits?
By saying that, Hugh means we're keeping it in. The more you back reference it.
Yeah, you've locked it. It's locked.
It reminds me, I've been thinking about this particular thing a lot, and I've been talking to a lot of people about it, so apologies if I've already said it. It's what Rick Rubin, who's a music producer, American music producer, and just guru of sorts, he's just released a book, and it's all about creativity, but about life really. And he talks about success, and the way he likes to frame success, which really tickled me, was when you have worked on something so much and it gets to the point, or not even so much, when you've worked on something to the point where you're happy enough with it, that you're happy enough to share it with other people, at that point, when you're proud enough of it, or you're like, no, this is ready to be released or to be shared or to be spoken or whatever, that's the success. When you get to the point where it's ready to be shared. Anything after the point you've shared it is out of your control. So it can't possibly be a measure of the success of what you've done.
Yep.
And that was massive for me.
Yeah, and the process along the way, especially when it comes to creativity. I was speaking to a friend yesterday who's a new author, and we were just chatting about writing processes, and she was asking me, how do you write? And I said, what are you feeling? What's going to work for you? Like, it's an experiment. Just play with it. Just see, when do you want to write? How long do you want to write for? Just see what works for you. But at the end, I said to her, she decided she was going to do a particular word count for a certain amount of days. And I said, and how are you going to celebrate every single day after you've written? She was like, what do you mean? I said, how are you going to acknowledge that you've written that day? She was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And I said, and then how are you going to acknowledge and celebrate the success at the end of the 30 days? She was like, I hadn't thought about that. I said, at what point do you decide that you're going to actually acknowledge celebrate the creative process and the time and the energy and the effort that you've put in and everything you've said no to so that you could sit down and write? At what point do we decide, now I'm worthy of celebrating it? Now I need to wait for that person to tell me that it's worthy of success. You know, as you said, that external validation. And you know, the external validation is great and it's really nice, and in certain industries you have certain awards, and 100% it's wonderful to get those awards, but only if when you go back to your hotel room or your home that night, you don't feel empty inside.
Yeah.
You know, that it adds, that it's like the gravy or the cherry on top, but it's not the thing that you were waiting for, because most people, when they were waiting for the award or for the win, it never feels like they thought it was going to feel.
One thing that I find about this is that logically I've always known that to be true, but it's taken a long time to not fall into that pattern of behaviour. And what you were saying before about not so much awards, but like material goods and like seeing stuff on social media with like people with a lovely house or car or all that stuff. I think one of the things that I have found tricky, and I'm sort of on the journey of getting there, is that it's really hard to know what success looks like internally, but it's really easy to see those measurable quantities out there and go like, well, I don't know what it's going to look like for me to feel successful internally. But I do know that a nice car would make me feel like those things are easy, and the internal stuff's really difficult.
And then I think there's the nice car, but does it make you feel successful if it puts you into debt and you're fretting every single month about the payment of the nice car?
Yeah.
Or is it successful because you can pay for it for cash and you don't have to think about it anymore?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the difference as well.
I'd love to talk more about, you talked a bit about like process and how important the process is in terms of measuring whether it's successful or not, or how to like go back and like, this is successful because I'm enjoying the process. Is that what you mean? Is that?
Yeah, so an example of that for me personally is, so I love endurance running, and the first marathon I did was kind of a celebration for my 40th birthday. That's not unique. Lots of people when they hit, want to do the marathon. And I remember when I got to the start line of my first marathon, I remember thinking they could cancel this race right now and I wouldn't care.
Wow.
Because I realised I've trained for 6 months to get here. The person that I've had to be, the way I've had to move things around in my life, the way I've had to parent my children and speak to my husband, and the things I've had to say no to, and the fitness that I have and the people I've met, this is already a success.
It's like the Rick Rubin thing, kind of. It's like when you're ready to perform or share it.
Yeah. And I feel that every single time. And I think different runners, and I don't know how you are, Hugh, I know that you're more of a sprinter than endurance, but different runners, some people it is about the race. That is what turns them on. That's what they're going for. But for me, it's like the weekly getting out in the forest on my own to run and see butterflies and smell the petrichor, the word for rain on wet leaves.
Oh, that is the best
Isn't
smell.
that the best smell?
Hang on.
And I didn't know
there's
there
a
was
word for that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether it's petrichor or petrichor, but there's a name for it. The smell of rain on damp earth, and I just love it. Like, so for me to be able to put myself in the way of beauty in that way every week, that is part of my success. That makes me feel like I'm living a successful life. The race is just a nice to have at the end. Like, I always want to finish. I've never got to the start line and gone, I think I'll go home.
Don't feel like it today.
Yeah, never done that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of enjoying the process as opposed to the final thing at the end, because then you miss everything and everything you've become along the way.
I love it. Love it. I guess it's like another version of journey, not destination.
Yeah.
Sort of. But yeah, I love that. I mean, I read something years ago which was similar to that, and it completely changed the way I approached all the work I was doing. And it freed me, completely liberated me from the pressure of like being the best.
Yeah. And I think it's different. I know that I've worked with a few Olympians and athletes. I know you've spoken to a few people on this podcast. Obviously, if you're in a particular role where your role is to be the best, I'm sure there's an added thing if you enjoy the process as well, but your job is to win. It is about the race. And that's why success has to be an individual definition at different seasons in our lives, depending on who we are and what it is that we want.
But do you think in that sense, like with an Olympic athlete who's like training for the Olympics and wants to win gold, can they also enjoy the process as well as can success be a combination of process and end product?
I imagine that if you were to, get a lineup of Olympians and athletes and ask them that question, they would all give you different answers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Some would say, I love the process more than the race. Some would say it's both for me. Some would say, I hate the process, but it's, I think it would be different for each person.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny you use that exact example of running and the Olympians. I have literally in the last week started working with this guy who's a former Olympian. His name is Brendan Cole, a 400 meter hurdler, and he's coaching me now. And he has we've started walking together. Like he walks next to me, he holds my foot and says, "No, we need to completely change the way that you move."
Right.
So we're changing everything.
Right.
And he's like, "You're not ready to run yet. We're trying to get you to put your foot in the right place, put your leg there." And it is so like rudimentary and so basic. And I'm like, oh, this is not what I'm into running for.
Yeah.
But I had this feeling of like, because I went there all ready to run and be exhausted. You're not ready. You're just going to practice bad habits. And we're going to teach you to walk before you run. I'm like, oh my God. But a couple of things, as I was doing, I was like, I will look back on this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here and I feel so uncomfortable. But part of me is like, no, this is awesome. Like this is, and I loved it and thought, we've got this race we're going to do in 6 months' time, in a year's time that we're pinning all out. That's our sort of goal. But I actually had that thought yesterday when I was doing this, like, no, this is great. Like this is really good fun.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I was exhausted after it because my brain was doing stuff that it's never done before.
Creating new synapses.
And I was a lot more tired last night than I am after lots of Ks, just from trying to. It's not really what you're talking about. It's just an interesting side note.
No, well, it makes me, actually what that makes me think of is because, going back to the beginning again, is because the success is that you get to run more efficiently for longer, stronger in the future. That becomes a measure of success. If you weren't putting in the work now, that would be a very different outcome.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking of myself at the start of that. I'm at the start of your journey you went on when you went 6 months of training. And I'm right at the start now, and he's this former Olympian, but he's like saying how good is this though? This is great. Like he's really enjoying the process as well. So I'm just very aware of that at the moment. Like it's especially the running examples. Like, I'm living that right now.
Yeah.
It makes me, and I think I mentioned this to you the other day when you were telling me this, but it reminds me of when I was in year 7 and I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to learn guitar because it was all about like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and I was like, well, if I play guitar, that will be really cool.
Yeah.
and so I got guitar lessons at the school guitar teacher, music teacher, and all I wanted to do was learn Alive and Smells Like Teen Spirit and like all the songs, so I could literally pick up a guitar and just show off. Like that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, we've got to learn all the chords first, and then you got to learn these like simple training songs. And I just didn't have the patience, and so I just gave up because I was like, nah, I wanted to be like have the cool things straight away. But looking back on it, I was not interested in the process at all. I was not interested in enjoying like, oh, this is cool. I'm learning something
external
new.
validation of
It was all about that.
peers.
Yeah,
exactly.
the external validation. And I think for the guitar thing as well, going back to this idea of success, so I am someone that really has always wanted to learn the guitar, and a few years ago realised if I got to my deathbed and realised that I had never learnt how to play the guitar, I'd be really annoyed with myself. Like it's really important to me. And I worked out for myself, so what does success look like for you in terms of playing the guitar? And it's so easy to default to, I just want to show off, or I want to be a rock star, or I want to do this. And I was like, I want to be able to play 10 campfire songs well enough to sit with friends and family and we all sing together.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
That's success.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's it, And it's that has me when I don't want to pick up the guitar and I don't want to do all the training and I don't want to do all those things. It's like, but actually what you want is to be able to create the connection and the joy that happens when people sit around a fire.
I love it. Yeah, setting that very specific goal that is achievable.
Yeah, because then when I get that, and then though, if I decided after 10, actually I want to do 20, I've still succeeded in my initial goal and then maybe I want to do more. But even that energy can be different because if it's like, oh no, it needs to be 20, I need more songs, it's very different than I've achieved it. I've done what I wanted to do and actually I've been enjoying it enough that now I want to do more. It's different from I'm not enough, it's not enough, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going.
Yeah, it's like going to the moon and going, maybe we should just keep going. What do you say? Jump in.
What do you
Let's
reckon?
just keep going. Let's see what's out there.
Saturn.
Now, Kemi, you mentioned before that you were going to, I'm kind of slightly nervous about it, but to do some sort of coaching exercise with us, which I'm excited about, but nervous about.
So the first thing what I need you all to do is take off your clothes.
Great.
Okay.
Right.
Didn't expect me to have Velcro on the sides of my pants, did you?
You were ready.
I'm more of a press stud guy.
I thought you were being serious.
I can tell you.
Can you look at me when you said, I don't know why I thought it was like, what the hell? What are we doing?
This is very holistic.
All right, lock the doors.
The first thing I thought was, I haven't kept my undies on.
Clothes can remain on.
Great. Okay.
Just this
Now,
once.
this is a process that I have used a few times, but I've never done it with 3 people at once. So I think I need to give you the caveat, the reason that this is, so we're playing, it's an experiment. I think whatever happens is going to give us feedback to continue the conversation anyway, so it can't go wrong. My concern is just making sure that someone's answers doesn't contaminate somebody else's answers.
Yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah?
What's that called? That's called the something effect. Doesn't matter. Let's
Okay.
All right, the copycat effect.
Something, yeah. So I'm going to start with Josh.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask to make sure that your feet are sort of firmly planted on the ground, that your hands are on your lap, that you just feel comfortable. And to close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to take a couple of really deep inhalations and exhalations in your own time. And once you've done that, just say to me, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
What does your head tell you about success?
That it's fleeting and hard to grasp.
Okay, take another inhale and exhale. Just let that go. Can I ask you to put your hands on your heart?
Yeah.
What does your heart tell you about success?
that it's at home.
Take another big inhale and exhale. Now put your hands on your gut. What does your gut, what does your intuition tell you about success?
That only I can do it.
Great. Take a big inhalation and exhale. And open your eyes.
Oh,
How was that?
that was pretty good. That was really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, but weirdly, I want to go, did I succeed?
You
my answer's
succeeded.
good.
Yeah, you
and
succeeded.
of course, now I feel like Michael Jordan just went first in the dunk contest, and now it's my turn.
And that's the thing about the contamination. So I think what
Yeah.
I'll do is that we'll just move around and then we can look at it afterwards.
That's probably a better analogy than the
And the
Vegemite.
Vegemite
The
one.
Vegemite
You
one,
keep
that's
back
right.
referencing it, mate. In crucial parts of the episode too.
So let's go for Hugh.
Okay.
Okay. So once again, just make sure that your feet are planted
I've
on
got
the
a bit
ground.
of wood between my legs here.
Okay. Ooh,
That's in. Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
Clothes are on though.
It's a lot of information.
Okay.
It's
the table that you're
I'm very
yeah.
awkwardly
I
close to
don't think
the
it
table.
needed to be clarified. We understand.
Okay. So once again, making sure that your
Okay.
feet are planted
Yep.
on the ground. Take a couple of deep inhalations and exhalations. And when you're ready, just let me know that you are ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
What does your head tell you about success, Hugh?
People recognizing the work that you're doing.
Okay, inhale, exhale. Place your hands on your heart. What does your heart tell you about success?
Doing things that I want to do when I want to do them. And I promise I'm not copying Josh, but it means being at home a lot.
And inhale. And exhale, placing your hands on your gut. What does your intuition tell you about success?
That it's not that important.
I'm going to ask you to go back to your heart. Just put your hands back on your heart. Take a big inhalation and exhalation. And really connect with your heart. What does your heart tell you about success?
Can I tell you what I'm picturing?
Yes.
Penny.
Okay. Thank you. Take a big inhalation and exhale. And when you're ready, open your eyes. We'll leave it there and we'll go straight to Ryan. Okay. Feet firm, arms, hands on your lap, on your knees, wherever you're comfortable. Just letting go of what you've heard. Taking a big inhalation, exhalation a couple of times, and when you're ready, let me know that you're ready. What does your head tell you about success, Ryan?
To be respected.
Take an inhale and an exhale. Place your hands on your heart. What does your heart tell you about success?
It's actually something that's coming to mind is something that,
So that's where I'm going to stop you. It's coming to mind. So you're in your head still.
okay,
Okay? So I'm going to ask you to inhale again and exhale and listen to what your heart is telling you about success.
my heart is telling me to be proud of the thing you just did,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that one of my old friends, Richard Marsland, used to say actually.
Okay. And now inhale and exhale. Bringing your hands to your gut. Sit with that emotion. What does your gut tell you about success?
That no one actually cares.
Take a big inhalation and exhale and open your eyes when you're ready. Okay.
That was cool.
What did you get from that process?
I was shocked at how clear how clear but different the three things were.
Yeah.
Like, and how different they felt.
Mm-hmm.
That when I was in my head, the head one felt a little bit anxious and panicked,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of a little bit of stress around it.
Mm-hmm.
And the heart one, I mean, yeah, it was sort of pure emotion.
Yeah.
But then once I got to the gut, it was kind of like relief at the end of like, yeah, so it was like stress, love, relief associated with each of them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's exactly the same as me.
Really?
Huh. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm sorry to jump the queue, Hugh, but it's just exactly the same for me because respect, being respected, is obviously something I can't control. So it is a stressful
It's
thing.
stress inducing.
Yeah.
Because how do you make that happen?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and then because I mean, I've never really said actually no one really cares about success. Never actually said that out loud. I guess I've thought it to a certain degree, but I do believe that that's true. I like, even though when I'm thinking about other people's success, like it's not that I don't care about them, but I think when I guess I'm just like, I'm happy for people if they're successful and they do something that they enjoy, but in the grand scheme of the world and my life, I don't really care that much, which sounds harsh, but it's kind of true.
Yep.
So I was amazed with how easily influenced I was by recent events in my life. So Sunday night, Joshua and I and Bridget did a show at Hamer Hall. We did 2 shows at Hamer Hall, and that was the last successful thing that came to my mind. And I was like, why was that so successful? What was that? And I was just thinking so many people loved it. So that's why I was thinking in my head, that's just the first thing. But when you said in my heart, I found it difficult because the first picture I had was just being relaxed at home, but Josh had said home. I didn't look like I was copying him because it was such a great answer. But then Penny and I had such an awful morning, such a tough morning, I should say, with the kids this morning, just trying to get them to kinder and school. It was just so traumatizing, the whole experience. And so success in my heart was like me and Penny just being at home by ourselves, just relaxed, just feeling like, I don't know, just being with Penny felt like success without stress. But then the third one in my gut was I saw on Instagram, of all places, New Zealand comedian Guy Montgomery, who I just love, say he was on, I think it was Will Anderson's podcast. I don't know what they were talking about, but I just heard him say something that gets him through is that, like, no one really cares about his comedy. No one's really watching his comedy. And so it really doesn't matter. And so that's why I said I don't think success matters, because I was thinking, what I'm doing, there's not that many people really listening in the grand scheme of things. So really success, it goes back to your heart. Like, success to me would be being at home with Penny, having a coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd feel really nice.
And the reason that I ask that, so one of the sort of coaching modalities that I'm really interested in is ontological coaching. And we're looking at like the 3 body wisdom centers. And exactly as you said, Josh, it is so clear when the head, the reason I asked you to do your heart again is because once we start justifying, that's not the heart talking. That's the head.
Okay.
Yeah? So that's why I wanted you to go back into your heart, because 100% a lot of people know what it's not to be. A lot of people know what it feels like to not be successful at home and how that impacts everything else in their lives. Does not matter if you are kicking goals at work. If the home environment is not working, then that has a massive impact on how you experience kicking goals at work. And does it matter as much? So a lot of people when it comes to success, it is about their family, it's about their relationships, it's about their health, it's about their well-being. The head will probably say it is about, the awards, about respect, it's about this sort of thing. And then the intuition is that really sort of grounded part of ourselves that can give us another answer. And it's not that one of these wisdom centers is better than the other, but we want to integrate all three of them.
Wow.
So that we're not just speaking from our head. So I'm married to a barrister. I spend a lot of time with people that are academics that spend a lot of time in their head and they don't necessarily have a lot of access to their heart and to their gut. And I work with creatives who have a lot of access to their gut and their heart, but maybe not their head. And so to be a whole human, we want to be able to move through those three systems when we need to be able to use them to make the decisions that we want to make.
It's
really
That
good.
seems like success.
Yeah.
Being able to,
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
to be able to do that.
Yeah.
The thing coming to my mind after you, especially what you said, Hugh, about like what Guy talked about, is it reminds me of when I did radio for 2 years, like commercial radio, and it was like drive radio every day, on Nova. And when you're in that bubble, and I guess this could go for any work really, but because it was very kind of like public facing and you having to perform to the extent where you need to rate really well. And everyone on the team and everyone in the company, everyone's so excited and enthusiastic, and you're working really hard and trying to do these really good shows. And then you're either successful because your ratings are high or you're not because your ratings are low. And I was only there for 2 years, but by the end of those 2 years, I really believed, without thinking about it, but I really believed that what we were doing was like everyone, like if we did an idea that lasted a week, it was like the country was talking about it.
Right.
It felt like it was this really important thing that like these 3 minutes between 4:51 and 4:56, we got to nail this. Because this is where we're announcing the idea, and if we stuff this up, then the whole thing falls apart, and then it's a disaster.
Yeah.
And I got into this mindset of believing that this is really important. And then when I wasn't there, as soon as I was out of the building, I had this like huge realization that no one gives a shit about what we were doing in that building. Like, of course, it's people who are listening. Some people care, and some people, but most people didn't even know I was doing the show.
Yeah. And there's something in that as well. And I don't think that we have to separate the two. I think it's 100% possible to be successful, whatever that means, a definition for each individual, and be loved, right? But I think if we ask most people, would you rather be successful or be loved? I mean, what would you answer? What would you, if you had to choose?
They intertwine for me.
But if you had to choose?
Gun to my head?
Yep.
Sure.
No, let's take out the gun.
Okay.
You just have
No need to be violent.
Let's not add any violence.
Slingshot to the arm.
That's right. I'll pinch your heart. If you had to choose success or be loved,
Be loved.
what about you?
Yeah, loved.
By who?
Good question.
Yeah.
People
Damn
that you love, people that you care about.
People I care about, then definitely love.
And it's not that we have, I don't want to, because that's the whole idea then. It's this idea that kind of people that have this kind of narrative or story of people that are successful are mean and not loved, and that's not true either. But I had a situation in my life, sort of similar industry, the radio, when I was an actor. And my age, I was very young, I was sort of early 20s, and my agent said to me, I think we should start looking at, auditions in Hollywood. I think that's where we should start looking now. And I wouldn't have been able to have said this at that time, but I just knew in my heart, and I wasn't even talking about my heart even, but I remember saying to her, I wouldn't survive that environment. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, friendships and relationships are really important to me, and they're really grounding to me. And I know that if I went into that environment, I would not know who my real friends were and who really had my back. And I just don't want to be in that environment at all. And in some ways, I think I was choosing love and what I knew and that security and that safety over this thing that at that time for me felt like I would lose myself in other people's idea of what success should be.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that get swallowed up in that industry,
Yeah.
which that we see, and you've spoken to some of those people and what it is to kind of keep pushing. And I know through coaching, one of the gifts that we give ourselves is taking the time to reflect and literally go, okay, so this is where I am now. I've reached a level of success, or maybe I haven't yet, but to get really clear on what is it I'm aiming for and why. Why do I want it? Do I want it because it's something intrinsic that I have decided within me, or do I want it because Sheila down the road has it? Or because David in the office has it?
Yeah.
Why do I want it? And then we also have to keep asking the questions. What am I willing to give up to have it? Because sometimes you have to sacrifice things generally if you're moving towards something. And at some point in that conversation, and I do this with clients all the time, they might go, actually, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'm actually not willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Or I have no idea why I want that. Or I did want that 10 years ago, but that is the last thing that I want now. You know, and I think in certain industries, being a speaker, I remember seeing a speaker get up on stage and he was very confident in saying, this is my 275th speaking engagement for the year. And I remember thinking,
Shit, it wasn't me, was it?
no.
Okay.
But I remember thinking,
Yeah.
you must be exhausted. And the next thing I thought was, how's your marriage going? But I also remember for me sitting, watching, thinking, that is what success is supposed to look like as a speaker. And I do not want that. I love the experience of going to a nice hotel room and, you know, having all that sort of stuff, but not every night, not away from my garden and my family. See, I put my garden before my family. You know, like actually success for me is not doing hundreds and hundreds of engagements, because then I would feel a disconnect to myself and that would not feel like success.
Well, that is prioritizing the process of being a speaker over the end product.
Yeah,
because
over
you
the
would
quantity.
you could argue that you would be more, not you, but anyone would be more successful, make more money if that's a measure of success.
Yes.
But you would make more money if you did more speaking and you reach more people and blah blah blah, and that is good if that's what you want. But if your process, if you want the process to be enjoyable, then you do less maybe.
Yeah, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be different for different people. And I think there's something in what you've just said as well, is that the measure, we have to decide what areas of our lives do we need a measure of success, you know, and where does it not matter at all? You know, because that's the other thing as well. There are some areas of our life it doesn't really matter, and success changes. You sharing about the running, you know, if you've just been through a major accident or surgery and you're rehabbing or something, success is, you know, I managed to walk from my bed to the bathroom. Like, that is success. No one's watching that. No one's going to see that. But that is a real movement from one place to another because you've put the effort and the work in. Health is a really great place to put success measurements in. You know, we go to the doctors, we get the blood tests, we get the results. Maybe they're not great. And we kind of decide, okay, I have a goal to make sure the next time I go, those results are better. They're the things fundamentally. And you're right, money is a measure of success. And money gives us choice, and it can give us freedom. And it can give us leverage, and we can do a lot of things with money, but it's one measure. Material goods is a measure of success, but it's only one measure.
Yeah.
Is it almost like you need to, I'm sure you probably do this to your clients, but work out what are the different areas of your life that you know, if money is one of them, family another.
Yep. Health and well-being another, 100%. And it's different for each people. I always say to them, what are the areas of your life that are most important to you right now? You know, and then where do you want to focus? Or if they're not sure, maybe the next clarifying question is, what would be the area that if you focus on that one area right now would make the biggest difference in all of the other areas?
This is very personal, but that we've had a bit of success with this podcast, and I, in a previous life, really wanted success, and I wanted success sort of the way that we're getting it, in that I wanted it to be publicly recognised. But I know if I'd gotten the success that we've gotten now 10 years ago, I would have been an absolute mess and wouldn't have been able to handle it. And I think there's many reasons, just getting older being one of them, the amount of work I put in going to psychologists over the years. But the main thing I think that has allowed me to do this show is my wife and children and the relationship and my home life. And the only reason I can do this show is because of that. But there's also a catch-22 there, that the more successful this becomes, the more time, like the tour we're doing takes time away from home and puts a certain element of stress on that as well. So there's this kind of, the two are linked, and I can't have one without, or I can't have the success of the show without the other.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just something that's going through in my head at the moment, something I'm navigating. And the other counterpoint to the success of the show becoming, to use the term we're using today, successful, and knowing that it's, and having that sort of symbiosis, I don't know if that's the right word, between the home life and work, is that when, for me, that I love both of them, but they both demand a lot of you some days. And I had this conversation with our producer Bridget because I was late getting in, and I felt like, and then I'd had a conversation with Soph at home where I was going to be late for home. In fact, it was because we needed to get something done for this live show, and I had to call my wife and say, I'm really sorry, but I have to stay here till like 10 tonight. And I felt like I'd let down everyone at work because I hadn't done this thing that needed to be done at work. And I also felt like I was letting down my wife at home because I said I'd be home and I wasn't going to be home. So at that point, I just felt like I was failing everywhere. Like I was letting everyone down who I wanted to not let down. So it was just like failure in both places. And some days, and I'm sure this is a very common experience for people in life when you've got a lot going on, sometimes you just feel like rather than succeeding in everywhere, you're just failing in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I know that part of kind of the positivity movement, which I'm not a fan of, is this idea of like, there's no such thing as failure. You know, it's like, well, no, there is actually, and it brings you to your knees. That's the reality of it. And I think there's something in reframing, but it's not necessarily reframing to putting a silver lining around it. I think the reframe can be, today didn't work. Why didn't it work? You know? So it doesn't become, I'm a failure. It's like, today didn't work, and then that's the awareness and the being present. What didn't work? Okay, I overcommitted. Or
I didn't communicate properly.
Okay, there you go. So then it becomes, so how does it feel to know that actually you're not failing at both things, you didn't communicate properly?
Well, it makes it feel achievable that it's possible to do the work, to have the family, and to not let people down. I just need to communicate better, and that's a very achievable thing. Yeah, to get in earlier, to say this is coming up this week. It's busy. What can I and how can I? What can I do? Can I, like, maybe I could make a meal that's in the fridge ready to go.
Yeah.
Or like things like that to ease the burden. And just better communication. And that's such an achievable thing.
Yeah, and I know that one thing that we had in our family for many years, it's kind of gone off a little bit now, was just asking on a Sunday night before the week began, how can I support you best? What's your week look like, and how can I support you best?
That's a great
and
question.
sometimes if I'm creating a lot of content and I'm writing, my request is leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't expect any more. And if my husband's in court, he's just like, I'm in court. So that means he's not home for dinner, to have no expectations. Do you know what I mean? And I think we can guess it's the meal in the freezer, but actually Soph might say, can we just please lock in a date for the end of the week?
Yeah.
You know, that it doesn't necessarily have to be something that we have to fix, but we're just asking, what does support look like for you this week? And then once again, we are always going to have days where we just feel like today did not work. But the opportunity is, what didn't work and what do I need to shift next time? As opposed to creating a narrative of it's failing, it's all failing. To say it didn't work today, or this week didn't work. Why didn't this week work? And then we can start to look at it. Yeah.
It reminds me of something that Ben Shuri said, who's the owner of Attica and one of the world's greatest chefs. He was talking about failure and why he really embraces failure, because he said there's never a better time to change than failure. And it's a great moment to come up with new ideas, workshop new things to make your life and things better.
Yeah. And failure is a part of life. And you would know, Ryan, with creative process, like, you're failing all the time. You can't, failure is a part of success. It's all linked together. You can't have one without the other. You know, you just have to be really clear around what it is that matters to you and do your best to go in that direction, and know that failure and success are going to peek their heads along the way.
Oh, the successes are obvious. If talking about like a creative process or writing, it's so much more exciting when you come up with the good idea if you haven't been able to 4 days before it. Like, if you come up with the idea straight away, it's like, that's really good. But God, it feels really good when you've been like smashing your head against the wall, not literally, but smashing your head against the wall for like days. He's like, oh, I'm not good at this. What am I even doing? I'm terrible. I'm a fraud. You have those conversations with yourself, and then you're like, oh, hang on. If I just
Got it.
I am a genius. I knew it.
Yeah, that's right. And then the next day,
Oh, no.
who am I?
Again.
This
Yeah.
is not working. Yeah.
I was a genius
It's a
yesterday.
process again.
Yeah.
It's the enjoying the process. And once we're aware of what the processes are on different things, we get to go, oh, this is what happens. Oh, this is what happens when you write books. Oh, you just start to
Yeah.
feel like you shouldn't be writing anything. Okay, that's part of it.
Well, it's almost like just even accepting the process.
Yeah.
Accepting that it is a process.
Yeah, it is part of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Mm.
There's a thing that's, I think, being not mentioned in what we've just talked about, which I'd love to delve into a little bit with you, is that I know I do this, and I think a lot of people do it, the jump from it was a failure to I'm a failure. And I think I've often, and it was implied in what you said before so beautifully about today didn't work, is a great way of framing it, is that not like I don't work or I'm a failure. But yeah, I don't know if we could talk about that for a second, because I find that it's been a cognitive jump that I've made many times in my life, and I'm getting better at not doing it, but I still sometimes do that leap, and I think a lot of people do.
And then the flip side of that is like if you have like a
The I'm
really
a
good
genius
moment,
thing.
you're like, oh, I'm a genius. It's like, no, you're not. You just had a good idea, mate.
Yeah. And look, I know that I would probably have a different response to somebody that's working, like a therapist that's actually working in this space around that, because then for me, it comes down to the individual and where they are with their sense of mental health and self-esteem. That some people are very deep in their experience of themselves in their life is that they are a failure, and that is their reality. And I think the power and the awareness comes from that is my experience. And then if I was working with a client that was feeling that way, I would ask them, how does that feel in your body? Like, what does that feeling of what does that feel like in your body? When have you experienced that before? Okay, what are you seeing? What are the themes? It wouldn't be so much me saying, well, you need to get yourself out of that. I would just create a space for them to explore. And sometimes, as I said, it's really powerful to say, that failed. It just did.
Yeah.
It just failed. And then the work that, that therapists can do, and they spend a lot of time working in this space, is around, and why are you calling yourself a failure?
Yeah, and
because it's
that's
separate.
individual to the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
I often, whenever I have those moments, I often think of people I really admire who have been very successful, like stand-up comedians. And because every stand-up comedian has had bad nights, no matter how successful they've been. And I just always think of like, oh, well, that comedian had a shocking night when they were in their early part of their career or even late in their career. Even though they've had 1,000 good shows, they have 2 or 3 bad shows.
And you're not calling them a failure.
And they're
You're
not
calling them a failure.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And when I first became an entrepreneur, I kind of made lots and lots of mistakes and felt like a failure at one point, and kind of hid myself in the house and just felt like I'd let myself down and my family down, and it was all just going wrong. And then I just was talking to somebody else, and she said, like, do you have other entrepreneurs in your life? And I was like, no, I don't. She said, you need other entrepreneurs. I actually tuned into a podcast. It was basically just about entrepreneurs failing. And it was so good because then it became, I'm supposed to. Supposed to fail. I'm supposed to make mistakes. I'm supposed to feel stupid, like I'm out of my depth and I don't know what I'm doing. That's actually part of it. It's not the shiny. We look at the shiny, the highlight reels, but all of the stuff that's gone in behind, there's failures all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And owning the failure can be a form of success. For me, I'm at the other end of my parenting journey. My 19-year-old son moved out 2 days ago.
Wow.
And
gosh,
now have a
huge.
17-year-old at home. And so I very much feel the work that I'm doing, it feels timely because I don't have that pull at the moment.
Yeah.
But when I was at home with my children, I made exactly the same decision.
Yeah.
That I need to make this manageable because this is my focus right now. And just trusting, because I had older mentors and older people saying to me, it will change. They get older. You change. There is time. Like, don't get into this complete stress bubble of this idea of scarcity. If I don't do it now, it's not for you.
And you've got to grab the momentum.
And you've got to grab the
yeah.
momentum, because I had a really dear Jamaican friend say to me many years ago, what's for you won't pass you.
Oh, great.
And that landed with me. Another friend said to me the other day, she's very much living through this idea of trust the timing of your life.
That's great.
One thing I talk a lot about as a coach is about scaffolding. This idea that we are on a particular journey in our lives and we create, certain boundaries and rules and scaffolding around that life. When our lives change, that scaffolding is not going to hold up that next level of life. You have to create new boundaries, new rules, new ways of being. So if you and Soph were to kind of go, if you were touring all the time and you thought, the scaffolding that we have around our family is what's going to take us through the touring, you're right, that is not going to work. But if it was, okay, this is what's going to be happening, what do we now need to recreate so we can hold the family unit
a new
while
structure.
I'm doing that? It's when we try and build like a 20-story building and actually the foundations only actually support the first floor, that things are not going to go well.
The trust the timing of your life really resonates with me, and particularly in reference to what you were saying, Josh, about like this podcast. I don't think this podcast would have worked 10 years ago because of where the three of us were in our life. So it's almost like a moot point, because it's like, well,
Wouldn't have existed.
It wouldn't have
worked.
existed for starters, because
I would have tried very hard to force it.
I would definitely not have been ready to do it. No way. And I think the reason it works is because of the timing. The timing is crucial in anything, and I think it is very. And I do say that to people sometimes. You know, if anyone who's younger says to me, like they ask me, how do I get into television, or how do I, and they're impatient and they want to like be successful now. They want to get work now, and they want to do it all now. And they don't, not that they don't want to work, but they're almost hard on themselves because it's taking longer than they want it to take. And it's only in hindsight that I'm able to like say this, but I really think I so resonate with that. Trust the timing of your life, but also if it's for you, it
won't pass you.
It won't pass you. I think that's so true, and I think the people who are patient, more often than not, if you stick with it and you're patient,
you do the work.
Do the work.
Still have to do the work.
Still have to do the work.
Yeah,
but I completely understand why people would give up on a dream or a thing that they want to do because it's not happening quick enough, or there's other things that are more important at that time of their life. And I get it, but I do have a belief that if you stick with it and work at it, if you want it enough and it's really that important to you, it will, in some form, happen. And then if you do what you're saying, Kemi, which is that you find out what is important to you, what is your measure of success. If you know that, then you can find success in that particular thing.
Yeah. And you can actually find success daily as opposed to it being this kind of amorphous thing that's out here. You know, it's, I remember what it was like being at home with young children, which I know you both have. You know, that success can be, I didn't shout this morning, or whatever, or I left the room when I felt my blood boiling, or, actually today I felt like a successful parent because of this, that we can actually build a sense of success within ourselves just by measuring these really small daily things. Most of us are not going to be on the stage with an Oscar. So then does that mean we didn't have a successful life? A lot of people are not going to have a certain amount of money in the bank. They're not going to be billionaires. Does that mean that they didn't lead a successful life? Some of the most successful people in terms of connection are the community builders and the people that are the glue of communities. And it as we've sort of said already, it's getting really clear on what is your individual measure of success and what are the areas of your life that are important for you to be successful in, and that's where the focus is. And anything else, it doesn't matter. Like for me, geographically, I have no idea where I am. Like I never know where I am, doesn't matter. And I have no idea, I have no intention of being the world's greatest navigator or knowing where I am. Like I just don't.
This is the Imperfects podcast.
This is the Imperfects podcast. Yeah, that's right. So I will be imperfect at that. Yes. In Melbourne, I'm aware of that.
Yes.
But there's also a real relief and an exhale and just going in the things that we don't care about, just taking ownership of, to be honest, I don't care.
Yeah, it's so true.
Like to be honest, I just don't care. Like I do these races. And my friends know that I never know where I am on the map, on the race, can't read a map, don't care. I could, but I only have so much capacity. And that's not something that's important for me to learn. And maybe I'll get lost in the jungle or in the wilderness one day, and that'll be a whole story to tell, But my friends know that they're good at that, so they will take that on. But I think there's a success in also taking ownership of I don't care about that thing. We can't care about all the things.
Yeah.
Just going back to what you said before about the different versions of success, the thing that came to mind for me was when you see, like I watch a lot of sport and you'll see maybe someone playing their first game of football and the parents are there watching them receive their jumper, or after the Olympics they'll interview the parents of a medalist or a participant. And I always look at them, the parents in that moment, and think what a moment of, like they're getting, like for them, the amount of work that's gone into getting their child to where they are.
Yes.
No one's patting them on the back for all the work they're doing, but for them that might be a thing of like, gosh, I'm getting recognised for. You see, they're often very emotional in those moments, and I feel like it's just because they never did it for recognition. They're not doing it. They're just supporting their child's dreams.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, like they already know it's success, but they're getting recognised. I feel like they get quite overwhelmed by that moment of just, this is success for me. It's not about. It's about them. I've done everything I can in my life, dedicated my life to getting them, helping them get to this point.
And it's really important, actually, as those of us that are parents, to be really mindful about our success not being linked to our children's success. It's not good for anyone's mental health. You know, it's not good for the child if they feel this pressure from the parent. It's not good for the parent if you're living vicariously through your child.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably also happening a lot.
Some of those, some of those situations it is, but as you said, some of those situations it's not. But I think as parents, we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves and just look at, is this actually a success that I didn't get to live and now I'm living it through my child?
Yeah, very true.
You know,
Very
or
true.
is this, as you say, I'm just facilitating what has come from the child and it's what they want to do and I'm separate from it. Because we hear a lot of sports people interviewed and it is very much, you know, my sense of myself came from my winning as a young person.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a sense of self outside of that. You know, so it's, you know, for me, I was very clear. A measure of success for me as a parent was that I raised independent adults, not like child babies, independent adults that had emotional intelligence and knew that who they were was the value that they would bring to the world. That was it. Everything else, I was like, I don't care. You know, I have a partner. He was very much, their education is important to me. The adventure is important, that we have adventures as a family. That's important to me. So then, you know, for me, I was very clear on what would make me feel like I was a successful parent, that I had done my job. And, you know, parenting's never ending. You know, I'm sure there'll be lots of other parts of that. But for me, I was very clear, this is the role I want to play and this is how I need to be present to my children. And I never move the goalposts. I don't need to be the funniest one in their life. I don't need to be one that gives them all the things. I don't need to. And to be honest, part of me raising independent adults was kind of creating tension in their lives. You know, they live very privileged lives. And which is different to them than a sense of entitlement, but they have privileges. But I've always seen my role as kind of just creating that tension for them, so they get to have that kind of internal resilience around life and letdown and failures and things not working and all of those things. I think as parents, it can be so easy to think that we have to be all the things to our children. Our children don't need us to be all the things to them.
That's cool. A really good example of that, which I've just seen, is, have you seen the Lewis Capaldi documentary?
No, but I love him and I will watch it.
You will
I love
this
him.
thing. I didn't know anything about him or his music. I knew that one big song that he did. You guys haven't watched it, have you?
I've watched like the first 10 minutes and was loving it, but I had to stop.
His parents are like the secret stars of that.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're unbelievable. I mean, they're hilarious. And he's Scottish, comes from this sort of small town in Scotland. But his he really goes through it, and they're filming throughout this documentary. They're filming through this moment in his life where he has this really, really bad run of mental health, and they stop filming for a while, and he stops touring, and but the way his parents support him is so incredible. It's really amazing.
Yeah, that's another music, isn't it? That's another, because I remember I wasn't a big Lady Gaga fan, but my husband was. When she came out, he was like, this woman's amazing. But I remember for me, she kind of came onto my radar when she just kind of put a halt to everything and was I'm not a pawn. I will not be, I'm not a machine to just crank out. I am an artist and I'm going to stop and I'm going to do it in my own time. Yeah. And then I think the next time we saw her was the movie. Star is Born.
Yeah.
You know, that there's something in being able to just say, okay, this is what I thought success was, or you're telling me this is what I should be doing. This is success. Don't let it go. Don't let it go. You've got to keep going, because otherwise the moment's gone. And she was just strong enough within herself to say, this is not working for me.
Yeah.
This is not working for me. And that's very special.
Yeah.
The thing that I find really powerful about what the exercise we did before and everything you've been saying is that I feel like for a lot of my life, and I assume if I've felt like this, other people would as well, it's so easy to grasp onto other people's definition of success, as you were just saying then, and really hard to identify what it is for you. And it's so empowering to know that that you can work out what it is for you. And then And then it suddenly feels a lot more achievable once you've worked out that it's yours, as opposed to trying to emulate someone else's.
Yeah.
So there's not really a question, just a thank you.
Yeah, no, that's and that's whenever I do a coaching process, I do ask the question. So I suppose that would be my question to you: is is that what you found most valuable from that process?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think just getting, I think it speaks to a broader learning that I'm sort of starting to understand. All the stuff that's going on in my life and in my head and all that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily about like fixing everything and making everything perfect. It's more about just being actually aware of what's going on and aware of the mental cycle I'm in, and just purely by having awareness of it, that can often be enough to just like, and it's just and for me, today was like a perfect example of clarifying just a few things and being aware of what I'm actually thinking. And it makes everything else feel like, oh yeah, now my today is going to be a little bit easier because I've got clarity over the order of operations and order of priorities.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And Hugh, what was valuable for you?
Well, valuable. I just wanted to make a comment on the whole thing. To me, as someone who spends a lot of time in schools and education, I can't help but feel like not all schools, but a lot of schools are doing the opposite of that process and dictating to a child, this is what success is. So you do this, then you do that, then you'll get this, and then that's the end goal. Yeah. And then, so the school that we went to, I'd like to hope it's not that way anymore. I'm sure it's probably not. Maybe it is, I don't know. But when we were at school, we had Will McMahon on from Will and Woody.
To that one. Yeah.
And he described the expectations of success that his school set upon him. He said, they have been my undoing and to so many of my friends as well.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about that. And I think a lot of it is, it was dictated to us that I remember even having a conversation at one point about saying I want to do primary school teaching as a degree, and it was like, no, you got this, Marks. You should do this.
That.
You need to do that. And I went, I'm 17 or 18. I went, okay. Yeah. No worries. I'll do that. I don't want to, but okay. I guess I'll do that.
Fascinated to see a study of like people's marks and how close their mark is to the thing that they choose, how high it is to the point of their mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a few people will say, oh, well, I did medicine or I did law because I got the marks.
Because I got the marks. I feel like I certainly did that. I mean, I think it was probably in the end probably a good choice of subject, but I definitely chose I got a certain mark and I chose the course that was 0.5 below that mark.
Right.
Like the closest I could get to that mark.
Yeah.
Rather than choosing one that was maybe 20 points below, because that's what I would have been great at.
Yeah. Mine was like, you got that mark, so you should do this because then you'll get a job that earns more money.
And then you'll be happy.
But I remember saying I'd rather do primary school teaching, but then have you looked at the salary for a primary school teacher?
Yeah.
And I went, I don't. Okay, I'll do what you say. Rather than just going, hey, I want to do this. Yeah. I want to do what I want to do. Yeah. And it took me 4 years to work that out and then go, no, and to find my way into primary school teaching. But
on the school thing, isn't that just generally with the way that schools worked when we were there, at least, and it probably still is this, it's just like you get marks and you're working towards to get a mark, and then you're getting good grades. And to get good grades means you're doing well, but to get bad grades means you're doing badly, and you need help.
It's worse than that. It's not that you're doing badly. Depending on when the child is, what developmental stage, it's actually become internalized to I am bad.
Oh yeah, well yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just you got a bad mark. It's you are bad. Yeah. That it's internalized to that, and then the whole class knows, and the whole marking system and how public it is, that it has a huge impact on how we.
Yeah, and then people grow up thinking that they're stupid.
Yeah,
because they were told that they're not as quick as the other students, and they should work harder.
And they should be working harder. Homeschooling is taking, a lot of people are homeschooling and finding alternative schools because of this reason, for those that have that choice.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because of that choice.
The value of it was, it's just so topical at the moment because I just feel like all of a sudden, like Josh said before with this podcast, it's like getting a lot more, I don't know what it is, but like recognition or known or whatever. And it's just a reminder to me that success really, what really counts to me, is how things are going at home. That is success to me, is home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, the effect that, I had the opposite effect. I couldn't say it because Josh said it, but it is, the value is that was a reminder that is success.
What about you?
I think for me, it's just such a great reminder that nothing's set in stone. Like there's things, you can change your perspective, you can shift the lens at any time, and it is so freeing when you do, because you do get sucked, no matter what age you are. It's so easy to get sucked into that thing, like exactly us doing this tour. It's so easy to get sucked into the belief that a good show is one that the audience cheers louder in.
Right. Yeah.
And I've been sucked into that massively, where it's like, oh,
we all did last week in a big way.
It's like, oh, that particular show, the audience weren't that good, so I was like feeling down about the show because of that. But then the week before, the crowd were really loud. I was like, that was a great show.
Right. Yeah.
And probably because my confidence was up, and so I was having more fun. But I think what's so valuable about that exercise and just talking about this is that it's not the outward response. It's not the external validation that makes you successful. It's the pride in your work or whatever it is to you.
Yeah. And I remember that as well when I was acting, and sometimes you do a show and people would come up and say, oh, that was amazing. And I knew within myself, nah, actually I wasn't on form today. Like, just wasn't. And it would go the other way, and they'd be like, oh, were you a bit off today? Like other cast members, I'd be like, no, I just tried something new and it didn't work, but actually I'm glad that I tried that new thing. Yeah. And I love what you say about I think we miss that we get to change things all the time. I say it to my clients and to myself all the time. We are making this up. Life, how to live it, we are making it up. And I remember when somebody first said to me, you've changed. And I went, thank you. Because it's like, good, that has been my aim. That is my focus.
Thank you.
Is to constantly be changing and growing and understanding more of who I am and what I want and how I can contribute and how I can impact. And it changes as I grow and as I change. And that, we're contradictions as humans. It's one of the gifts of being a human. We can be a contradiction. We can want something really intensely for a period of time and then get it and go, do you know what? I don't want this anymore. Yeah. But so many people think, but I work so hard, that kind of sunk cost thing. Yeah. And it's like, oh, but I've worked so hard for it, but I've studied for so long, but it's like, okay, but what is the actual cost? My mental health, my well-being, I'm not happy. I wake up every morning feeling sad. Okay, so how long do you want to hold on to this thing that no longer serves you, and you can celebrate all of the work that you put in and the recognition and who you've become and the journey and the process, and take full ownership of it's no longer for you. That is also a measure of success.
Yeah. So about this point, everyone's probably like scanning the show notes. Like, how do we get more Kemi Nekvapil in our lives?
Well, great news.
Absolutely.
Great news.
Yeah. Great news, Kemi. You have a fantastic new series, a brilliant new series on Audible called Power Talks. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I can. It is very exciting. It is a conversation or a coaching conversation with 7 of Australia's most fascinating women. So that includes Miranda Tapsell, Megan Gale, Claire Bowditch, who I know you've had on the show, Brooke Blurton, Maria Tathil, and a few other women, Abby Chatfield. And I'm coaching them to look at what are the areas in their life where they feel like they want to build their power or where they feel that they've lost their power. And actually one of them I do this process in. It's a different question. It's not around success. It's around something else. And what comes up for that particular guest is really, really profound. Just really when you listen to what your heart is telling you. And it's just a series of conversations. And what I wanted and what we want for the listeners is that when you're listening to these conversations, one, you get a lens into that we're all humans navigating the human experience. And it doesn't matter what you think someone has or who they are because of what you see from them externally. They still spend 3 hours writing an email because they're concerned about how it's going to be received on the other end. They don't know how to put in boundaries around family members and they feel really bad about that. They're really struggling with being a working mum and having kids. Like, it's all the same stuff. So I really believe that each listener is going to get something from every single conversation. They're all different. I'm the only, common thread all the way through. And it's been an absolute delight. I think it's going to be a really impactful series.
Well, I cannot wait to listen to it because you are so deliberate with what you do. You're not just out there putting content out into the world at every opportunity. You're very deliberate and you say no to a lot of things. So when you do things, you do them so well. So I cannot wait to listen to it.
Same.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. And it's just so great chatting to you. It really is. You're an incredible person, and there's one of those interviews where I forgot that I was meant to be interviewing. I just really lost.
Yeah.
I was so lost in the conversation. I don't know what the time is. We're probably going way over. I don't know. I've just bloody loved chatting to you, and yeah, we love you, and yeah, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys.
Thanks,
you.
Kemi.
Thanks,
Kemi.
The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton, and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin.